Good morning and welcome to my channel History with Hansa. This is Dr. Hansa Das once again with you. And in this video and the subsequent video, I'm planning to do with you the Glorious Revolution of 1688. Uh, it is divided into two parts. The first video will focus upon the background to the Glorious Revolution 1688, the conditions which prevailed in England prior to the revolution, how the civil wars, etc., were fought. And in the second video, we will talk in particular about the Glorious Revolution, the causes of the revolution, the events, and finally the consequences. So, in this video, we will talk about what actually happened just before the Glorious Revolution took place in 1688. So, in the beginning, if we talk about the beginning of the 17th century, the Stuart dynasty was established in England. Queen Elizabeth died in 1603, and with her ended the Tudor dynasty, and James I became the first king of the Stuart dynasty. So, when she died in 1603, the Stuart dynasty was established by James I, and James I ruled from 1603 to 1625. Now, James I was a strong supporter of the theory of divine rights, and we will find that the theory of divine rights played a major role in creating a tension between the king and the parliament, subsequently leading to the Glorious Revolution. So, we will look into the details of the theory of the divine rights, what it was, and how it created tensions between the king and the parliament. So, what was the theory of divine rights? According to the theory of divine rights, kings derive their power, prestige, and authority direct from God and not from any earthly human being. God gives him birth, that is, the king, only to rule over human beings. So, taking advantage of the theory of divine rights, the rulers of the Stuart dynasty, right from James I, tried to assert their power over the people. Of course, James First was not the founder of this theory. This theory was widely accepted in Europe during the 13th and 14th centuries also. This theory had been continuing since a very long time. The Tudor monarchs also believed in this theory. Before the Stuart dynasty, the Tudors also believed in this theory. And James First widely propagated this theory and created problems for the English monarchy. Now, what were the results of the theory of divine rights? Number one, the kings became absolute monarchs and ruled despotically, which created chaos and dissatisfaction throughout the country. Now, if the king is saying that he's a representative of God on earth and that he's been selected to rule over the people, then definitely it will create dissatisfaction among the people as a kind of absolutism or absolute monarchy is being established. Also, at the same time, the power and prestige of the parliament began to decline gradually, and the Stuart kings established their sway over it. The result was that a tug of war started between the king and the parliament. So, this conflict between the king and the parliament had its source mostly in the theory of divine rights, which the Stuart kings had been following since a very long time. Now, the reign of James I is considered to be an important landmark in the history of England. The Stuarts ruled in England for about 111 years, and their period marked the beginning of a historical issue, the conflict between the king and the parliament. And subsequently, the civil wars which followed were also based upon this cause. Uh, of course, after the accession of James I, a Cold War began, and both the king and the parliament tried to overpower each other. So, as already said, a tug of war began between the king and the parliament, and each tried to assert its power or to assert itself at every moment or at every point of time. Now, let us look into the factors responsible for the struggle between the king and the parliament. James I failed to exercise his control over the parliament, and a conflict began between the king and the parliament because of the policies of James I. Of course, the Renaissance, Reformation, etc., gave added fuel to the fire, and as it infused a spirit of rationalism among the people, and the conflict became more and more inevitable. The character of James I was also responsible for the outbreak of this conflict. After his accession, he widely propagated this theory, which was not acceptable to the English Parliament. Uh, at the time of accession of James I, there were three religious sects in England: the Catholics, Anglicans, and Puritans. James I was against the Puritans, and Catholics were also annoyed with him. Thus, Catholic and Puritan members began to oppose the king in the parliament due to their religious differences. Fourthly, James I wanted to establish despotism. That is why he was propagating the theory of divine rights, and this could be possible only by crushing the privileges of the parliament. So, James I wanted that the prerogatives of the parliament, he believed that the prerogatives of the parliament were given by the king, and he had the right to take them back, and this was highly resented by the parliament. Uh, Another issue was that James first wanted to get his son Charles married to the Princess of Spain. The English Parliament was against this policy. Also, Spain rejected this marriage proposal. And after this rejection, James first married his son Charles to the French princess and also declared a war against Spain, although he could not achieve victory in this war. But certainly the Parliament opposed this action of James I vehemently. So, another cause for tussle between the king and the Parliament. Uh, Also, James I was a spendthrift and he had emptied the entire treasury. Parliament granted money to him on the condition that he should carry out reforms in the administration. Uh, but he displaced the parliament and he tried to impose taxes himself. Again, the parliament opposed it. So, these were the reasons for. Or the factors responsible for the conflict between the king and the parliament. Now, during the 22 years of the reigns of James I, he called four sessions of the parliament, but because of differences between James I and the parliament had to be dissolved three times, and the fourth parliament was also dissolved in 1625 when he died. Charles I, the son of James I, became the ruler of England after the death of James I. Charles I was greatly short of money, and the parliament was not granting him money according to his desire. So he also, like his father, started imposing taxes on his own. And from 1629 to 1640, Charles I ruled as a despot. Now it was the time for civil war, as a conflict between the king and the parliament had reached its heights. So the first civil war took place from 1642 to 1646, and the second one from 1646 to 1649. We will look into the events of the civil war and the consequences, what results the civil war brought. So, the Civil War had a great significance in the history of England. As a consequence of the Civil War, not only was the absolutism and despotism of the king abolished, but the theory of the divine rights of kings itself was put on stake. So, the theory of divine rights of kings was also put on stake. The Civil War also made it clear that the people were not puppets in the hands of the king, and if the king violated their rights, they also had the option to raise their voice against him. And of course, the mistakes and shortcomings of James I and also to some extent Charles I made the Civil War inevitable in England. Conflict with Parliament was inherited by Charles I from his father, which he widened by his own faults. The economic policy of Charles I was also a root cause of the outbreak of the Civil War, and the Puritans, they were in majority in the Parliament, but Charles I was also against the reforms desired by the Puritans. Now, through the Civil War, it was to be decided, firstly, from the political point of view as to who, the king or parliament, was more powerful, and also from the religious point of view, which of the two, the Anglican or the Puritan church, would succeed. So the Civil War was to decide these political and religious aspects both. Now, the small merchants as well as the big traders supported the parliament, Puritans supported the parliament, farmers favored the parliament, whereas the landlords were supporters of the king during the Civil War. In the beginning of the First Civil War, the king achieved success, but later on he was defeated. And in the Second Civil War, Charles I was defeated, and on 30th January 1649, he was given death punishment. But the execution of the king proved disastrous, and it influenced the country gravely. The establishment of democratic rule in England was an important effect of the Civil War. The Puritans gained power and strength as a result of the Civil War. House of Lords was abolished and the Parliament became very popular. In 1660, Charles II ascended the throne and he ruled from 1681 to 1684 without Parliament. He died in 1685, and since he had no legitimate offspring, he declared his brother James his successor. James II invited a session of the Parliament just after his accession. Parliament sanctioned a huge amount for the expenditure of James II, but ultimately their relations also got strained. James II was also a follower of the theory of divine rights, and his chief objective was to rule the country despotically. He had faith in Catholic religion and he wanted to re-establish Catholicism in England. And to establish his absolutism, he tried to remove the hindrance put before him by the Parliament. So this is what happened just before the Glorious Revolution of 1688. The civil wars happened, and we have seen the consequences. Now, in the next video, I will discuss with you in great detail the Glorious Revolution, why it took place, how it took place, and what were the consequences of the Glorious Revolution. So, this was just a background to the Glorious Revolution, the events that took place just before it. Hope you like the video and hope you've understood it. And please look out for my next video on Glorious Revolution, because if you don't watch the two videos in continuation, you will not be able to get the point. So please wait for my next video, which is on Glorious Revolution. And if you have liked the video, please subscribe to my channel and also share it with others. Thank you very much.